Hello, what is your view on this one?
Okay, so basically, I agree with everything Harsh said. Here's the challenge. The challenge is a large publicly traded company is hierarchical in nature, and despite the fact that it tries to go through changes and manage itself as a matrix organization, there are constant pressures. And you know, another topic I'm sure we'll get into is this notion of reinvesting. Investment is a fundamental requirement for growth, and however, the marketplace as a publicly traded company will challenge that in a significant way. So you say to yourself, so why would someone come to a mid-sized company, you know, or a small company? Well, again, I think it does come back to a core point that Harsh made, which is it's about the people. They want to join a group of people that they trust, they respect, that they want to be like, and let's face it, each of us has a culture that we bring to the table, and individually we want certain degrees of freedom, and larger organizations do not allow that, despite their ability to espouse entrepreneurialism as low down the organization as possible. So I would contend and put forth the hypothesis that hierarchical structures are absolutely the opposite structure, are a false structure to breed innovation and growth long term. Short term, while we're in the, as I said, the contagion stage, this high growth phase, everybody's growing. You just have to be there, and you're growing. When you get into the control and integration stage, the more mature, maturity on the growth curve, I guarantee you that the game is very, very different. And at that point in time, what matters? What matters is the results you deliver to clients. What matters is the kind of work that people are doing. It's how you value them. It's how they feel. And so it does absolutely come back to people. So just one final point around the people process. The way we do it is we view the total life cycle of our people as a single business process. It is not, the recruiting piece and then the benefits piece and the people care piece and the performance appraisal piece. That has to be a full life cycle approach, and that's the way you take care of people from a process standpoint. But again, as we've been reinforcing here, which I think we're all in unanimous consensus, is that culture and values are fundamental and extremely important.
Thank you. I think there were some excellent points made on this particular point, and certainly something to learn from. But I mean, the culture is just part of it. As Arvind referred to it earlier, you also got to think about the structure, and I do agree that as the organizations go through the growth and maturity life cycle, they change their structure. The question is, in a growth stage, what is the best structure, and how do you maintain the balance between entrepreneurship, and discipline, which is something which Arvind, you referred to. How have you achieved that in an organization which will keep you in a good shape as you reach that more mature stage where you will need stronger sort of structures which will keep you, against intense competition?
Yeah. I think to answer that, let's just reflect upon a startup, which is truly in an entrepreneurial mode. Typically, it's driven by passion, it's driven by an idea, it's driven by a lot of people working together towards a common goal. And as that startup starts growing up, you bring in new people into the organization. It becomes more difficult to communicate that effectively. You add more people who may not be of the same level, and that's when you start bringing in some amount of process and structure into the organization. So it's important to have some process and structure, as well as the freedom to be able to develop new ideas and carry those ideas through. Sometimes what happens is that the processes become more dominant, and when they become more dominant, you find a situation where creativity starts getting curbed. Sometimes you have creativity becoming dominant, and when that happens, you have some kind of indiscipline, in the organization, and the situation becomes just too informal. And I think it's the sense that you need to get about what kind of balance you need to create between the two. It's like, and I was just listening to another session, again, that was on innovation, where, somebody talked about, a pilot. When you get into an aircraft, you don't want too much creativity happening over there. You want the pilot to conform to some discipline so that you reach safely. Yet at the same time, when there is a situation, maybe the plane is coming down too steeply, the pilot has the full freedom and the ability to take off again and land again or do something else. So what you've really done is you've created an environment, which is what I call an environment of a culture of discipline. So you've conformed to that, yet you have the freedom to take your own decisions. I think that is the culture that needs to get created in organizations to make them great organizations. Now, easier said than done, right? Because you're dealing with human beings. And the reason why you have bureaucracy really is because you have a lot of people in the organization who are not really up to speed. And that's why you need to have processes, you need to have conformance, you need to have audits, you need to have many other things. At the end of the day, you can't have everybody, who's a top performer, and you have to run an organization with, people, that you have. In every appraisal situation, you have the, top flyers, and you have the people who are good, and then you have the bottom ones. You know how to deal with the bottom ones, you know how to deal with the top ones, but most of the work has to come out from the average people in the organization. So therefore, you need to have that discipline. So when you look at structures, very clearly, there have to be roles which are defined, goals that are defined, but having done that, you need to have the right people in place who understand their responsibility and have the freedom to act within the framework of the direction that you have set for the organization to deliver those results. We talked a lot about mid-sized, smaller organizations needing to focus. You may have, a person running a geography who is driven by, let's say, sales, and he could be getting sales out of, his relationships out of nowhere. But if it's very clearly ingrained that, hey, you want business in the areas that you are going to focus on, then he must have the discipline to make sure that the organization energy is channeled into those areas. That's what I mean by creating the right balance.
Sure. Anyone else with views on this?
Well, just to add to that, I heard about how we need to be flexible and keep changing our structure. I would say when you are a smaller organization and you are growing, I think you can evolve the organization. I would think that as you become larger and you start getting into issues, things are not working out, it's a matrix structure. Unfortunately, the management gurus do believe that the solution is in changing the structure. And hence we change, as I mentioned, turn it this way or turn it that way. You have only so many options to move it around. I think we need to give time, and I thought somebody mentioned about changing structures every 6 to 9 months. Believe when you go down to the guy who really operates, for 3 months he is guessing what the change is, and he spends 3 months trying to work out how he will adapt to the change, and next 3 months he's worrying about what will be the next change. Right? So I think as managements, we got to make the structure work rather than change it every single time. That's one. Right? The other part I would think is that the structures really fail because when you take these structures, people's agenda become higher than the company agenda. So I think as senior executives, our job is to kill the agenda and ensure that we are intolerant to personal agendas as we drive organizations. So I think there are interplays of many. We do need changes, match strategy and structure, but at the same time, I think how we implement and run it becomes as important. Sorry about that mention.
No, let me comment because I'm the one that mentioned the 6 to 9 months.
Some controversy.
Actually, yes. Here's some controversy. I contend that what you just described is an internally focused organization. We have a culture assessment framework that we do as part of a organizational diagnostic. We do this for clients globally. And basically, it's of course a 4-quadrant model, typical business consulting thing, right? On one end, it's internally focused, and the other side, it's externally focused. And on the bottom, it is control and stable, and at the top, it is creative, innovative. And the reason why these are on opposites of one another is we call these competing values. It's a competing values framework. So we are up here talking about culture. That's ultimately what we're talking about. So the question is what is the right balance for an organization? Internally focused, externally focused, stable and in control, which is really fundamental to management processes, versus agile and flexible and innovative. What is the right mix? And actually, there are profiles of the mix of those, because actually every organization has some blend of those. So